I've generally found that when I get involved in politics, it ends up badly. Probably shouldn't do that. I should do less of that, is my conclusion. Politics is a blood sport, It's like you enter politics, they're going to go for the jugular. So best to avoid politics where possible.
What Musk is really pointing to here isn't fear of politics, but disillusionment with how it operates. He describes politics less as a space for problem solving and more as a zero-sum arena, where engagement invites personal attacks rather than constructive debate. There's an implicit contrast already forming. The world of engineering and systems, where incentives, structure, and efficiency matter, versus the political arena, where symbolism often outweighs results. And that tension becomes central to what follows. Because despite his instinct to stay away, Musk explains why he stepped in anyway, and what he discovered when he looked behind the curtain. What comes next shifts the conversation from ideology to incentives, from rhetoric to mechanisms, and from appearances of virtue to whether systems actually work in reality.
Well, it was like a very interesting side quest, because I just got to see like a lot of the workings of the government. There's been quite a few efficiencies. I mean, some of them are very basic efficiencies, like just adding in requirements for federal payments that any given payment must have an assigned congressional payment code and a comment field with something in it that's more than nothing. Like that trivial seeming change, my guess is probably saves $100 billion or even $200 billion a year. Because there were the massive numbers of payments that were going out with no congressional payment code and with nothing in the comment field, which makes auditing the payments impossible. So if you have to say, like, why can the Defense Department or now the Department of War, why can it not pass an audit? It's because the information is not there. It doesn't have the information necessary to pass an audit does not exist, is the issue. So a bunch of things Doge did were just very common sense things that would be normal for any organization that cared about financial responsibility. That's most of what was done. And it's still going on, by the way. Doge is still happening. But it turns out when you stop fraudulent and wasteful payments, the fraudsters don't confess to this. They actually start yelling all sorts of nonsense that you're stopping essential payments to needy people. But actually you're not. We get this thing like saying, oh, you've got to send this thing for whatever, it'd be like, this is going to children in Africa. And I'm like, yeah, but then why are the wiring instructions for Deloitte and Touche in Washington, D.C.? Because that's not Africa. So can you please connect us with the recipients of this money in Africa? And then we get silence. I'm like, okay, we just want to literally talk to the recipients. That's it. And then we're like, oh no, it turns out for some reason we can't talk to them. I'm like, well, we're not going to send the money unless we can talk to the recipients and confirm they will actually get it. Fraudsters necessarily will come up with a very, sympathetic argument. They're not going to say, give us the money for fraud. That's not going to be what they say, obviously. They're going to try to make these sympathetic sounding arguments that are false.
They're going to start an NGO and then...
Yeah, they're going to see NGO. It's going to be like the Save the Baby Pandas NGO, which is like, who doesn't want to save the baby pandas? They're adorable. But then it turns out no pandas are being saved, okay, in this thing. It's just going to it's just corruption, essentially. And you're like, well, can you send us a picture of the panda? And like, no, okay. But it's very hard, like if you care about the reality of goodness rather than simply the perception of it, it's very difficult to give away money well. So I have a large foundation, but I don't put my name on it, and I don't, in fact, I say I don't want my name on anything. But the biggest challenge I find with my foundation is try to give money away in a way that is truly beneficial to people. It's very easy to give money away to get the appearance of goodness. It is very difficult to give money away for the reality of goodness. Under the Biden administration, it was basically a total free-for-all with like no border controls, which, unless you've got border controls, you're not a country. So you had massive amounts of illegal immigration under Biden, and it actually it also had like somewhat of a negative selection effect. So if there's a massive financial incentive to come to the U.S. illegally and get all these government benefits, then you're going to necessarily create a diffusion gradient for people to come to the U.S. It's an incentive structure, and so I think that obviously made no sense. Like, you got to have border controls. It's kind of ridiculous not to. Then on the left wants to basically have open borders, no holds barred. You know, it doesn't matter if someone what the situation is. It could be a criminal. Doesn't matter. Then on the right, you've got, you know, at least a perception that somehow their jobs are being taken by talented people from other countries. I don't know how real that is. My direct observation is that there's always a scarcity of talented people.
In this video, Elon Musk offers a rare, unfiltered look at how power, incentives, and inefficiency actually operate behind the scenes. What stands out to me is not his political alignment, but his insistence on first principles. Systems should be auditable, incentives should make sense, and outcomes should matter more than appearances. Whether he's talking about government payments, NGOs, philanthropy, or immigration, the same pattern keeps emerging. Good intentions are meaningless without accountability. Musk doesn't frame himself as a savior, but as an engineer frustrated by systems that reward waste, opacity, and narrative over results. You don't have to agree with every conclusion he draws, but the core message is hard to ignore. If we care about real impact rather than moral theater, we need to redesign the structures themselves, not just argue about them.